Hi, good people. Welcome back to my channel. Thank you so much for subscribing. And by the way, if you haven't subscribed, kindly do so. And with me today, I have my good friends that have been in the previous episodes. I'd like them to say hi, then we can carry on with our day.
How are you? It has been a while. Thank you for joining us today. We have been celebrating the Mental Wellness Month, and we are glad here because we keep on bringing you what we think is relevant, and we hope we keep engaging with you. Thank you so much for the feedback that we have been having from you, and we look forward to it. As I'm telling you, my name is Masikibe.
Hi everyone. Once again, thank you. It's a privilege to be in front of you every other episode. It is also a blessing for the feedback that we are getting. We look forward to more interaction with you. I'm Irene Kifeka.
Thank you, ladies, and always a pleasure to have you around. So, like Mercy has mentioned, we've had our mental wellness month, and we always bring, to your attention what we feel is actually necessary to improve on your mental wellness. So today we'll be looking at parenting and how stable mental health in parenting is necessary, especially when you're bringing up your children. And I think I'm going to start, of course, with my good friend. I know you've seen this in the past, and they're laughing because they know every time we're here, we have to start with our prof. We call her prof. So, welcome, Irene. What does parenting mean to you?
All right, thank you very much. Kind of getting used to this starting thing, Bush. All right, I think for me, parenting is basically the art of adults taking responsibility for children and basically bringing them up. So for me, parenting is where two or more people actually just take responsibility over children and basically bring them up to life. Yes.
Thank you. What about you, Mercy? What does parenting mean to you?
Okay, I'll look at parenting as just a manner of someone taking up the role of guiding and also protecting someone who is a minor, someone who is not yet mature or old enough within the laws of the country to be able to make decisions for themselves, to be able to provide for themselves. So you're there basically to provide for them the basic needs like health, care, education, and the well-being of that person. So that also can also be brought in as an aspect of parenting.
Well, in short, you're saying even parenting, it's not just about the father, mother. We also have, the guardians. Maybe someone was brought up by their aunties, their uncles, their grandchildren, their grandparents. So you mean the guardian part of it?
Yeah, definitely, because when you look back at the African society before we came into this age that we are in, a child was not an individual responsibility. We say a child was brought up by the community, and that's why when you were growing up, you'd misbehave. But when you get home, your mother is already aware of what was happening, and she'll be waiting for you there with her slippers. Some of us who have grown during that era, you understand that the slippers, the wiggle, it was part of us growing up, and we loved it that way, and that's why we have turned out like this. So parenting is not just a one-based person thing; it's a communal thing. We need to have would I say stakeholders? Stakeholders in parenting, because it's a whole holistic thing, and values and morals that are being imparted with a child, and that's when now again we talk about primary socialization. Who is the first person that comes into a child's life and start teaching them the moral values and the basic ethics of livelihood? Now that's when all parenting starts in.
I agree with you.
Yes.
Even right now we should look at it as communal. But do you think most of the parents would really agree their kids to be brought up by the community? Do you think so?
I think one of the things we need to look at is we already said parenting is basically bringing that child and supporting, but we also need to ask ourselves, what kind of families are we having to be able to say that we are actually parenting? Because with the current, the modern society, we basically have the typical, I use the word typical because the whole family scenario has totally changed. So you have a father and you have a mother and then you have the children. And that was basically like the nuclear family we've had. And that's where parenting basically is at the moment. But then again, we also have these different types of families in which the parenting element comes in. So you have also what we call single parenting. And this is either matriarchal or patriarchal. Where if it is matriarchal, it's a single parent who's a mother who's taking care of the children. And then patriarchal is where we have a single father, or you have the man, let me put it, the man taking care of children on his own. Then we also have what we talked about, the extended family, where you actually have maybe the father, the mother, and then the children. Then you have other people. We have the aunts, we have the uncles, and then we have the cousins, we have the grandfathers, and basically taking care of these children, or basically being part of the parenting. Then of course we are having the scenario where we have step parenting, where you actually have this person where, for example, they're coming in as I come in with my child, my partner comes in with their child, and we actually go ahead and parent these children. So these children are growing up as stepchildren. Then now we have the modern society where we have single gender parenting. And I call that single gender because, again, there's a male alone and a female alone, and it is still being accepted as part of parenting. But I think one of the things we need to understand is either way, children are actually brought up, children are made by male and female. Then you have this child, and then the parenting comes in. So it's critical to understand of all the different family setups that we have. Either way, whoever is going to take charge of those children can be deemed as a parent. Yeah,
I think I totally agree with both of you. And my question was, and still remains, do you think the community, or do you think the modern parents, the current parents that we have, would really agree to have their children brought up by the community like the way most of us, grew up?
I don't think so. I think they're trying to avoid that question.
I think that the scenario is this, right? We have come up with a lot of rights.
Thank you.
I have my rights.
Yeah.
We're teaching children their rights, for crying out loud.
Yeah.
So when you sit down and say that we are going to parent children in a communal setup, the question is, how is this community set up in the first place? Because, like we said, some of us maybe were brought up in the rural area where it was literally community. But even those who are brought up in the urban areas, we probably brought up in estates. So I know I grew up a place where if you wanted to go shower with hot water, we knew where to go. Shower with hot water, it would all be a bunch of kids, But then that report would come back home and would get a thorough meeting, like, when did you go and shower at so and so's places? I mean, it's not like there's no hot water in your house, So I think a lot of it is where a parent's able to understand that this communal parenting has a base. What's the foundation we are having these days? What kind of people are we calling parents these days? And that's why I think even Mercy is like, communal parenting is becoming an issue. And we see this in schools, where when a teacher is doing their thing, you find a parent come and telling you do your teaching and do the parenting. But in our time, the teacher would sort you out. The parent would never even get to know about it.
That reminds me of the time I was in primary school. When I was in grade 4, the day I used to be beaten every day. I'm sorry to say this. Because my mom thought I was really naughty. And I agree I was naughty. But what made me naughty is because I knew whatever I do, I'll have to be beaten.
Were you looking forward to being beaten?
I was not looking forward to being beaten, but I didn't fear to do anything. Nothing was a big deal to me because I knew at the end of the day I'd be beaten. And that's why I keep on telling those that are my friends and their parents, they have children. I tell them beating is not the solution. Look for a way that you can punish this child, not just the beating. Because for me, because I knew I'd be beaten, I would do anything. And let me tell you, every time I came from school, I would find our class teacher seated in the sitting room taking tea.
And coming to report.
And then I would know I've already been reported. So I'd know that evening I'd be beaten up.
When you talk like that, it brings me back to something I've always said, that parenting is 75% apparent. And that is what our parents exercised. When you find a teacher in your home reporting you to your parents. Now 25% is just supposed to be up to the teacher, guiding and teaching this child. Now when we now look back to our parents and the way they were the styles that they used to parent us, I would say most of our parents were authoritarians.
Yes.
They were authoritarians, and at some point they became authoritarian. But basically, I think they were authoritarian because they never gave us a room to explain. As long as it was told, it had to be so. It was kind of a dictatorship parenting, whereby you did not understand whether you had a voice to be heard in it.
They never listened to
At
us.
some point, as you grow up now and you're starting to become like a young adult at 20, you're going to college. Your parents start changing their style and they became a bit authoritative. Already they have set the authoritarian style of parenting, whereby it's the parents saying, now they're telling you, you have just a very true say, but also in this say, there are boundaries that you cannot cross. And that is the best type of parenting, whereby you're authoritative and you're allowing a balance of communication between the children and the parent. You can come, sit in and have a family discussion and have a consensus on what you want to do. Now we are moving away from that authoritative and authoritarian, and we are coming now to this age of avoidance and pessimism, whereby we don't want to be so involved when you avoid, as in a father who would just sire children, sorry for saying this, the deadbeat dads, and they just walk away. They don't want anything. They don't want to be involved. Then we have the passive parenting. I feel like, especially for parents who have been left alone, like either it's a father or a mother or a grandparent who is parenting, and they feel this child has been wounded, the parents have walked away, this child has not had the privileges, or if I'm working too much, then again I do not have enough time. So whatever the child says, it goes my way. Now, when in avoidance, where you have avoided, you have no say, you have no involvement. But now when it comes to passive parenting, the child has all the way. This is where we are right now. The children get to have their way. It's not even about rights. It's not even about anything. Amesema nikikataa kumfanyia atakasirika, atafanya
But do you
nini?
think this is what is even making them feel that they can take charge over us?
Yes.
I think one of the things, and she said it very rightly, is that we're having a generation of parents, maybe 35, 40 kind of age, where we went through the authoritarian,
Yes.
and we kind of had guns, guns blazing on our heads. So we're getting to a point where you're telling your children, I went to school without shoes.
Thank you.
So your kids are like, yeah, so what? And
What
what does that have to do with me?
Mm.
When my father spoke or my mother spoke, we were not supposed to answer back, and they're looking at you and thinking, so what? So what is happening is now the parents are getting to a point where they're feeling guilty that because I suffered, my children shouldn't suffer. But what they don't understand, this suffering in quotes is what has built them to who they are today.
Thank you.
So what we are doing, we are getting what we call them, we're calling our children baby, baby mama, baby, in African culture, we call them mama and baba. So, and you see, when you're calling your child your father or your mother, you respect them. But this is not respect. This is basically spoiling them. Because if you find a child, like we're saying, a child who basically runs your home as a parent, so what's your role? So we are really not bringing up children who are going to be stable in our society. And as far as I'm really I'm concerned, this is very, very alarming. And I think this is a conversation that needs to be had a lot, and have topics and just have conversations with parents, especially at that particular generation, who need to understand that being a parent does not mean that you're like a prison warder. It just means, remember that the first thing you are to your children is a parent. Then you can bring your friendship. It's okay being a friend, but the first thing is you need to be a parent. Do your parenting thing. Then the friendship will come. But don't create friendship with your children, not forgetting that initially and most important, you're a parent.
Yeah, we need to be, we should be the first role models to our children. And like they say, parenting does not come with a manual. We are all trying, and we are doing our best.
Absolutely.
What I would really recommend is that we need to be careful not to, bring up our children with, especially some of us who had a lot of traumas when we were growing up. We need to heal from those traumas first, so that we come to parenting with right state of mind. And with that, thank you so much to our viewers for having us today. Thank you, ladies, for coming.
Always a pleasure.
And until the next time,